It is fight week. It's International Fight Week. Guys, have you maintained or have you reached a level of excitement to match International Fight Week, UFC 303? Yes, McGregor's not fighting versus Chandler. That's a huge disappointment. But the backup plan, we talked about it last week. Alex Pereira versus Prochazka, Jiri Prochazka. This is a title fight. They gave us Lopes versus Ortega out of nowhere, and they're trying their best to deliver a light heavyweight match. We still got Ian Gary versus Michael Page. That kind of came in late. What's your level of excitement goes for UFC 303?
I'm with my dude Dan Tom with this. I'm over rematches. Look, is this worth Conor McGregor money to be in the arena? No. But is it worth your pay-per-view dollars? I'm okay with it. I'm down. I feel like overall at home, spending my money, I'm a happy dude. I think we've already seen this fight, but it's still going to be fireworks. I'm okay with it.
Danny Segura, what does the UFC want out of this matchup? I think Pereira's their guy, right? But trilogies, no one hates those.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about. I think the UFC is in a win-win situation here. Look, if Jiri Prochazka wins, you got another European champion. Not only that, but all of a sudden you're one-on-one with Pereira. And if that fight's exciting, which it should be, dude, you can run a trilogy and kind of skip over Ankalaev once again and avoid that fight. And fans won't complain too much. And all of a sudden, you got a fantastic beef and bad blood and rivalry brewing at 205, something that's very needed in that weight class. So, yeah, I think it's a win-win for the UFC, whether Pereira wins or whether Prochazka wins at this point.
Dan Tom, I know we'll be getting the full 100 from you on Protect Your Neck later this week, on your breakdowns on MMA Junkie, which we all enjoy. The guy pours over a lot of footage before he arrives at his conclusion. So right now, if you can give us an early lean, what do you like in Pereira and Prochazka if you were to say, I'm leaning this way?
I'm leaning toward Poatan, and to kind of answer your question at the top of the show, I don't know what the UFC is expecting anymore as far as excitement level. It's hard to get excited for these things when they themselves don't even treat it with the same respect. We used to always have the Memorial Day shows. Now that's like one of the only weekends they actually give us off. They overload the goddamn schedule to like burn out everybody from the fighters who could barely make these dates, the media, their own staff. Shout out to their staff, by the way, having to do all this production turnaround for 303 with the new promotions. That's not easy. That part of the UFC doesn't get enough credit, and they should, by the way. But yeah, man, the rematch fatigue, all that stuff, it's tough, man. They're just trying to fill their content, man, and pass off a pay-per-view. And they're in a good spot because what you guys said is absolutely correct. You can have the rematch no matter what happens because it's on short notice. It just sucks that these guys have to go on short notice. Poatan's really putting a lot on the line here, and he's, coming in, recovering some broken toes. So I don't know if I like that as a Poatan fan, but that's where I'm leaning, George.
Yeah, man, I feel you. I like Poatan as well, so I like hearing that you're leaning that way as well. But again, all of our fight picks on MMA Junkie and Dan Tom's breakdowns, they will be available later in the week, and those are kind of our final plays once we've poured over all the footage and discussed with each other. Frankly, me listen to Dan's breakdowns because he's the one that assists me with that. I got some good stuff coming in here on the chat. One is from Oatmeal26. He says, guys, where the hell is Ankalaev? I thought he was next in line after the Hill Alex fight. One media member asked Dana White at the post-fight press conference about him. And I don't know if Dana didn't understand him or if he just twisted it, but he said, oh, yeah, he's in the mix. He'll be fighting for the title as well. But I think the question was meant to say, why wasn't it Ankalaev? And why'd you go with this rematch that we saw less than a year ago? We just didn't get an answer. We can't seem to get an answer. He was there in attendance. We don't know if they went to him at all, or if he had already said, I won't take the fight on short notice, or what he would have said. We just don't have answers to that Oatmeal 26. But it is on my list to try and get an answer for you this week in time for next week's Spinning Back Clique. I will try my best, and if not, I'll admit that I couldn't get it. But I've been wondering the same thing. We're on the same wavelength. Frozen, like Elsa says, UFC 303 co-main is 10 out of 10. I know Danny Segura is feeling it. Lopes versus Brian Ortega. It came out of nowhere. But I got to know, what if Ortega wins? What if Lopes wins? What happens, Danny? What does this do for him?
I mean, I think whoever wins here is obviously going to get a lot closer to the title, and I think potentially could get a title shot because we know the UFC sometimes rewards these fighters that save cards, that step up with big opportunities. And keeping in mind that Max Holloway has that BMF belt, which you can also play around with other fighters, not necessarily Ilia Topuria, I think there's a chance we might see a next title challenger out of this fight. But yeah, man, this is such a fantastic fight. I think it usually whenever there's matchups, it like serves one fighter or the other. But in this case, I think it serves both. Brian Ortega is a name. He's known, he's recognized, he's respected. But I feel like he needs to prove a little bit of relevancy in terms of like, yeah, we know you're good, but how about you beat some of the young blood and prove to us that you're still one of the very best, if not the best in the world. And Diego Lopes is the opposite. Like he's been beating all these guys, these young guys that are kind of in the outskirts of the rankings, and now he's finally getting a veteran name. So look, if Diego Lopes wins, shit, I don't know. I think you see him next in a main event fight. If Brian Ortega wins, I don't know, maybe title shot. It's going to get interesting for sure.
Well, I was going to go to Dan Tom for that one. What about if Ortega wins, Dan? I mean, he spoiled the fiesta down in Mexico City a few months ago against Yair Rodriguez. So we're thinking, holy cow, he might be in the mix here. But then Max Holloway points to the ground. He gets down and beats Justin Gaethje. He's got options. And, of course, Alex Volkanovski, he's a guy that held the title for a long time. He's wondering where's his immediate rematch. So what would this win over Ortega? Remember, filling in on late notice, beating Lopez. If he were to beat Lopez, piled on to beating Yair Rodriguez, although he's also had 2 title shots. What do you think happens with him?
It's tough because when this show's over, folks, in about 8 minutes on the same very channel, there's an excellent interview with Brian Ortega that I listened to this weekend. And boy, is that having me lean Lopez's way as far as my lean goes. And even if he does win in that same interview, regardless of our picks, right? Ortega stated that he wants to stay at 155 pounds. So that's kind of the interesting there. It's different. With that being said, it's completely different stakes with Diego Lopez, despite arguably being the bigger guy. He looks to be planning to stay at 145 pounds. And I think, both fighters should be have an opportunity, but especially Diego Lopez, by the way, which we talked about people getting gypped for bonuses. How about Diego Lopez not only getting gypped, but then having the commission trying to take a piece of his pie for hopping the cage? Because, the commissions are all about fighter safety, right? And the only time they care about the fighters is to fine them. Besides that, they're just covering their own people, but that's another argument. Anyways, that doesn't have nothing to do with, Diego Lopez getting gypped out of a bonus. So hopefully the UFC is trying to repay him in the form of opportunity. But guys, I don't want to be, a Buzz Killington over here, but same with the main event, same with this, same with people getting, excited for Volk Makhachev too. Like, it's like, what are we doing, guys? Like, are we falling victim to the UFC's promotional hype? Are we taking part in trying to hype it, because I don't know. I hate short notice stuff. It's terrible. We're not getting honest fighters. They're putting so much on the line. With the show win structure, we see how these fighters are taken care of, right? Like, we just mentioned Jared Gordon, not only losing a fight he probably should have won, and then somehow they get gypped for the bonuses. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know. There's no guarantees. Again, like you guys just said, well, what about the guarantees for opportunity? Number 1 contender fight. Like, that doesn't even mean anything either, all these promises. So, like, I don't know, man. I don't like seeing the fighters being kind of not forced, there's not a gun to their head, insert Hunter Campbell meme, but like, there's some pressure being put on these guys, and I don't know. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Because what do you feel about this fight and what it could lead to either one? So at first, I guess I'm asking for your early lean, and then what would it mean to that fighter?
Early lean is Lopez, but I think it's a damn shame that with that big sphere and that card that they're trying to put together, to not see one of those two guys walk out to something like that. I would love to see a winner have anything on that card, but I think it's going to be a fun fight. I'm kind of with Dan a little bit. I saw that interview too, and it just didn't feel right. It seemed kind of off a little bit, but skill wise, I think it should be interesting. But my lean is towards Lopez.
Yeah, I haven't seen the interview yet, but I'm seeing some comments here. Karate Ted Toon saying Ortega said he would donate $100,000 of his purse to the church. Not sure that's a good frame of mind. See, I haven't seen it, so I can't really opine. But I thought I saw some other people saying, what frame of mind is he in? We're excited about the matchup, but it is late notice, not proper camps like the way they should be. So that part's, I guess, a little bit disappointing. How about Ian Gary and Michael Page, Danny Segura? Who do you like here, man? We were picking Logan Storley's brain here because he was a teammate of Gary when he was at Killcliff, and he fought Michael Page, and even he was like, man, it could be the most exciting fight or it could really be a huge stalemate, but they're big names, so I'm excited about the name value. How about you?
Yeah, I'm excited for this fight. And look, sometimes even like say like boring fights, and I'm throwing the air quotes here for the people in audio. So sometimes it can be interesting. Like sometimes just the way they're trying to figure things out, I find it interesting. So I'm not too concerned about the potential of it being a slow paced fight. I think even if it is, it'll be interesting. And man, I don't know. Logic says Gary, he's just younger. It just seems like he's getting better and better. He gets a lot of shit on the internet, but he's a great fighter. But I don't know. Something tells me that MVP is going to pull off the upset. And this same feeling that I'm experiencing right now is the same feeling that I had when Mike Malott fought Neil Magny. And I said it on one of my live chats on my Spanish YouTube channel. Cheap plug right here. I don't know. Something's telling me that MVP is going to pull this off.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a good pull, man. If you predicted that one, and you ain't crazy, MVP, man, is a really, really difficult puzzle to solve. What I like is when he came over from Bellator in his debut, he wasn't as reluctant as I've seen him to pull the trigger as I've seen him in other fights. So I'm hoping he'll maybe get the party started. I don't know. Ian Gary, this is a really stacked division. He's winning. He does cause a stir, but I think he can easily be passed over because I just don't think he's arrived like he thinks he has. Again, undefeated. I tip my hat. He's knocked off a few names. I get it, but I don't think he's as over as he thinks he is just yet. So we'll see. I think he's got to go out there and put on a show and definitely not get the crowd booing or anything like that because the crowd's expecting a highlight out of this one. Goes, who do you like here?
That one's tough, man. I could see MVP doing something just crazy that catches Gary off guard. I think it's a win-win for the UFC. I mean, if MVP wins, you just continue to promote him. If Gary wins, the legend kind of continues. But both guys are so good with their words and their actions that I feel like a loss for either one, they can rebuild faster than most fighters. But I don't think it's going to be a boring fight. I think it's going to end violently.
Dan, are you even excited about cracking the books, we'll say, and breaking this matchup down? Or do you forecast, oh, man, like having to deliver the bad news that we may not get as exciting of a fight as we think we are?
I mean, there are some three-round decision stinkers I'm going to have to go through on the MVP side, but I don't blame where Danny's head's at. I still got to run it through the proverbial comb. I got to see how MVP does against Brazilians because he's fighting Ian Machado Gary. I'm not here to be Irish. I'm here to be Brazilian. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
All right. And of course, the rest of 303 does have some intriguing matchups. Let's highlight one from each of you. What are you interested in from UFC 303 this weekend that we haven't discussed already? We'll go to Goes first.
Remember last week I told you about Jared and Nasrat. That was my pick. This pick for me is kind of the same deal, man. Andre Feely and Cub Swanson, I feel like for the same exact reasons, they are just going to go at each other. It's going to be nonstop. Neither guy knows how to take their foot off the gas. If you miss your fireworks on the 4th of July, you're going to have them right here because this fight's going to be bomb.
Dan, Tom, who do you like?
I love that shout. The only problem with Feely and Swanson is that it's not the main card opener, perfect Joe Silva staple, but God forbid we have lighter weight classes on the top of the cards, UFC matchmakers. And in that same vein, I'm going to shout out another lighter weight class that's traditionally buried in the prelims. That is men's flyweight. I'm going to shout out Ray Tsuria. He's getting the same spot as the other Road to UFC finals that we just saw this last weekend. Were much lower level. Ray's actually really good. Surprise, surprise. He was on my first prospects to watch before he got in the UFC, and here he is. So, again, not to keep bumping my junkie prospects article, but GD is at aging well, right? So I'm really going to be looking for Tsuria, as I can't pronounce his name. Hopefully, we can, get these fighters more promotion so we can hear Anik and those guys say it more and get it drilled into our head because, much like people are high on Tyra, raise a southpaw pressure grappler with some punching power that I'm really high on.
Danny Segura, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to go also with a lighter weight class at bantamweight. We are going to see the return of Peyton Talbot versus Yanis Gamori. Peyton just, has the vibes of a future champion. He's poised. He's got skills. He's dangerous. I'm really excited to see how he fares here and what other wrinkles he shows us to his game, because so far this guy's championship material from what we've seen.
Joseph Boza in the chat says Myra Bueno Silva and Macy Chiasson is going to go under the radar at 303 for me. It's a big one at women's bantamweight. It's who I was going to say, so I'm just going to read what he said. And it looks like, UFC potentially looks for Rocky's first challenger. It could come out of this fight. Karate Tedtoon says, yes, Macy's a badass. Chris Goes Wild says, Arlovsky versus Boudet. And on the way out, I'm not trying to be the hipster or anything, but you know what? Lately, Enrique Barzola's won me over. So him versus Timur Kizriev, it's on the undercard, but these fights are on ESPN for PFL 6 on Friday night. Check it out. I think it's going to be a good fight. And I think the guys did a great job of covering what's going to happen at UFC 303.